And I have to remind myself that at one point in time, I think that we are all undesirable people. Whether or not we're an undesirable person to our spouse, to a friend, to a child, to a father, or to a mother, whether we've disappointed in the past, I guarantee you, we've all disappointed God. And if you're sitting there thinking, I don't have any chalk on me, you were horribly mistaken. Because I am probably the worst sinner here. I got chalk all over. You just can't see it. In the Gospel of Luke, we are the outcasts. We are the people in society that society forgets about. And you have to understand first century Jewish society, that whatever was on the outside was what represented what was on the inside. So if you had wealth, if you were beautiful, if you were a Pharisee, a scribe, a teacher of the law, if you had power and prestige, that was given to you by God. Because that's how God blessed you. That was the mindset. And on the flip side of that, if you were ugly or had a physical life-altering deformity, or if you had some tragic accident happen to you in your life, guess what? That's what reflected what was on the inside. Remember the story of Job? He had all this horrible stuff happen to him. His friends come to comfort him, and what happens? His friends are sitting there waiting for Job to confess his sin. Job doesn't confess his sin, and they say, oh, why are you still holding on to your integrity? Confess your sin, because you're obviously in this situation because you sinned against God. How can you not see that, Job? In John 9:2, the disciples of Christ thought the exact same way when they looked at the man born blind and they asked Jesus, hey Rabbi, who sinned? Was it this guy's parents or was it him? And Jesus says it was neither. So if you had this physical outside deformity, this life-altering being blind, lame, crippled, or poor, that was something that you could see. That was something that was externalized. And not to mention that this physical deformity led to a social deformity as well. If you were physically deformed, kind of like, may I say it, kind of like if you are today, some people kind of separate themselves from you. Just like in the first century, if you had a physical deformity, nobody wants to befriend a social outcast. Nobody wants to befriend the morally bankrupt. You're like that because something's happening. You're paying for a sin of your father, or you're paying for a sin you've done yourself. And I'm not going to be associated with the morally bankrupt. And even in John 5, if you saw it, John 5, when Jesus goes to the man who's at the pool of Bethesda, and he's been ill for 38 years, he can't get in the water when the waters are stirred. Why? Because no one would help him. Even amongst the outcasts, they wouldn't even help each other. You have nobody. No one but yourself. My daddy always told me, Barrett, trust no one. I've learned to kind of stray away from that. But what he's getting at is, you are all you've got. And in this very mindset, as we are physically deformed and very undesirable, that is all we have is each other. Ourselves, not each other. So Jesus is having a banquet. He's having a dinner with all the Pharisees. And he introduces this parable to them, and this is really, really shocking. Look at this, verse 16. Jesus replied, a certain man was preparing a great banquet, and he invited many guests. And at the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, come, for everything is now ready. Not only are we ugly and horrible on the inside and on the outside, we have to sit around in our alleyways, in the dirt, watching all of these other people get invited to a party. It's like, I don't know, have you ever been invited, or have you ever been not invited to a party that you thought you should have been invited to? We have to watch this over and over again. And I think oftentimes it's so hard for us to see those people who get that promotion, or see that people who get that group of friends, or that lucky inheritance, or whenever that person has a leg up in life, we kind of I wish that happened to me instead, to that person. And the servant is going around from door to door knocking and inviting these people. And it's almost like we have to bear the shame of rejection again. Because when you invited somebody to a party in the first century, you did it in these 3 steps. Follow with me. The first step was you RSVP, kind of like how you do today. Hey, I'm having a party, would you like to come? Yeah, sure, I'll come. The second thing you did was you sent your servant out an hour earlier to tell the people who had been invited, hey, guess what? Remember that party that you said you were coming to? Hey, that's going to happen in an hour. Make sure you get ready. And the third thing you did was you sent your servant back to escort them back to the party. Very cool thing. So we have to, for us, who are the crippled, the blind, the lame, and the poor, we have to watch all this positioning, and we have to watch this thing happen over and over and over again. And all we can think about, all we can fantasize about is what? Going to a party. That's what we want to do. We want to be that person who's got it all together. We want to be that person who enjoys that good food, that warm food with the good company, and the wonderful people that are going to be there celebrating and having a blast. Well, we kind of listen in, and we start noticing that there is something horribly wrong with this situation that's going on. People aren't with the servant. Matter of fact, we're hearing excuses as to what is happening between the servant and the people who are invited. Listen to these verses 17 through 20. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, come, for everything is now ready. But they all began to make excuses. The first said, I've just bought a field, so I must go see it. Please excuse me. Another said, I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me. Still another said, I just got married, so I can't come. And these excuses are absolutely pathetic. They are horrible if you understand anything about this biblical text. Listen to this. The first guy says that he's just bought land, and he's got to go inspect it. In the first century, it was illegal for you to buy land through a real estate agent or an agent without inspecting the land first. So you're telling me that you've got to go inspect land that you've already inspected, that you've already purchased. Horrible excuse. The second guy says that he's just bought 5 yoke of oxen and he's got to go try them out. He's got 10 cows to plow his field. That's a lot of field. You got a lot of field. You got a lot of workers because you're wealthy. You don't do any hard labor. The workers do. Let them try out the oxen. Horrible excuse. The third one is the one I love the most. I just got married, so I can't come. This is actually a valid excuse. If you were married in the first century and you were in the military, you didn't have to go to war or to battle for an entire year after you were married to make sure that you would conceive a child so that if you died, you could pass on an inheritance to that child. But this isn't war, it's a party that you said you were going to. These excuses are absolutely horrible. Basically, what it all boils down to is that the people wanted to make the master happy with their RSVP. They wanted to make him happy, letting them know that, hey, guess what? You know what? I'm going to be at your party. But they didn't want to come. They didn't want to follow the servant when it came time. In the first century, in Jesus' day, if you had a party, you invited the people who were a little less prestige than you. You wouldn't invite anybody more honorable than you, because you invited those people so that you could bring honor to yourselves. But when the hour came for the servant to be followed by these people, they made these horrible excuses as to why they would not come, because in all actuality, I think that they feel more honorable than the host. They have to give him something. They gotta spit out something. And oftentimes those people who get that invite are the people who begin to make excuses. And what's up with that? We're sitting here in our alleyways, we're covered in dirt, we're covered in ugliness, and all these other people make up these horrible excuses as to why they're not going to go to the banquet that we so desperately want to go to. What is going on with that? All this food is going to go to waste. I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm lonely, I want to participate in fellowship. I want to participate with other people and eat with people. But listen to verse 21.